Ever felt like a puppet, like someone else was pulling your strings? You make a decision, say a word, or feel an emotion, and it just doesn't feel entirely yours. Or maybe you've seen someone, with an almost creepy precision, to twist situations and people to get exactly what they want, leaving a mess of confusion and hurt feelings behind. We often talk about how these dark psychology tactics work: the gaslighting, the manipulation, the sneaky coercion. But tonight, we're going deeper into the murky shadows of the human mind to ask a more unsettling question. Why? What's going on inside someone that makes them weave these webs of control and deceit? Get ready, because the answers are as complicated as they are chilling. Welcome. Tonight, we're not just going to list manipulation techniques or give you quick tips on how to dodge them. Nope. We're going on an investigation, right into the heart of the manipulator. We're peeling back the layers of charm and calculated moves to find out what really makes them tick. Why do some people choose the path of dark psychology? Is it a hunger for power, a complete lack of empathy, or something even more deeply buried? Figuring out these core reasons isn't about making excuses for them. Not at all. It's about arming ourselves with some serious awareness, a better understanding of people, both the good and the really, really unsettling bad. We're going to look at the unsettling why that fuels these tactics, focusing on that profound lack of empathy and the overwhelming need to dominate others, often for purely selfish reasons. Imagine looking at another person, not as someone with feelings, dreams, and their own weak spots, but as a tool, a pawn on a chessboard, to be moved around and even sacrificed whenever you want. This is often the disturbing reality for people who operate with a massive lack of empathy. Empathy is that basic human skill, right? The one that lets us understand and share what someone else is feeling. It's the invisible glue that connects us, encouraging compassion and respect. But for some, that glue is weak, or even worse, totally gone. When empathy is critically low, other people's emotional worlds just become, well, irrelevant. Pain, distress, joy, fear, these are just bits of data to be noted and used, not felt or respected. Think of it like a surgeon operating without anesthetic, maybe not meaning to be cruel at first, but just completely detached from the patient's pain. Now, imagine that detachment mixed with a self-serving goal. This isn't about healing, it's about getting ahead. People with severely limited empathy don't register the emotional damage they cause, or if they do, it just doesn't stop them. Their own goals, their own desires, are the only things that matter. This emotional numbness lets them use tactics like gaslighting, where they systematically try to make you doubt your own sanity, or emotional blackmail, where your deepest fears and insecurities become their weapons. They can lie with a completely straight face, betray trust without even a flicker of remorse, because the emotional fallout for the other person simply doesn't register on their internal radar. It's a cold, calculating world where relationships aren't about connection, but about what they can get out of them. This lack of empathy is a cornerstone of what's often called the dark triad of personality traits: narcissism, Machiavellianism, and psychopathy, and we'll touch on these as we go deeper. Without empathy to guide them, the path to exploiting others for personal gain becomes alarmingly clear and easy. Other people's suffering isn't a problem for them. It's often just an irrelevant detail, or worse, a sign that their tactics are working. Beyond that cold landscape of missing empathy lies another powerful driver: an overwhelming, almost desperate need for power and control. For many who use dark psychology, life feels like a constant fight for dominance, a game where you either control or you are controlled. This unquenchable thirst can come from all sorts of deep-seated psychological issues. Sometimes, It's born from feeling incredibly insecure. Imagine always feeling small, unimportant, or threatened. For some, the only way to quiet those inner demons is to control their outer world, especially the people in it. By manipulating others, they get a quick hit of superiority, a temporary boost to a fragile ego. Every successful manipulation, every person they manage to bend to their will, is like a drug, momentarily soothing that gnawing emptiness or fear inside. The control itself becomes the main goal. For others, the drive for power isn't just a defense mechanism, it's a fundamental part of how they see the world. They might genuinely believe they're better than everyone else, that the rules don't apply to them, and that other people are just there to be directed and used. This isn't just about feeling safe. It's about feeling entitled to run the lives of those around them for their own benefit, or even just for kicks. Power, for them, isn't a responsibility, but a right, and a tool to make themselves feel bigger. Think about the workplace manipulator who subtly sabotages colleagues to get ahead, or the partner who micromanages every single part of their loved one's life. These aren't just random acts of meanness. They're calculated moves in a personal quest for dominance. They might try to isolate you from your friends and family, making you dependent on them, or constantly change the rules so you're always trying to win their approval, always under their thumb. This need to control can show up as outright aggression, or in sneakier, more hidden ways. But the reason behind it is the same: to be the one in charge, to make sure their will, and only their will, dictates how things go. This drive can be so intense that it overshadows everything else, including the well-being of people they might even claim to care about. Now let's look at a specific type of manipulation, one that's less about impulsive actions and more about cold, hard strategy: Machiavellianism. Named after Niccolò Machiavelli, whose 16th century writings famously told rulers how to get and keep power, often through sneaky and dishonest means. This trait describes people who are strategic, calculating, and super focused on what's in it for them. For someone high in Machiavellianism, the world is a chessboard, and people are just pieces to be moved to get what they want. They're often patient, watching how people interact, spotting weaknesses, and planning their moves several steps ahead. Unlike a more emotionally unstable manipulator who might act out of sudden insecurity, the Machiavellian type is often cool and calm, seeing manipulation not as an emotional outburst, but as a practical tool. Relationships are judged by how much they can help achieve personal goals. Trust, loyalty, and honesty, they aren't valuable in themselves. Their worth depends on how useful they are in a particular strategy. Imagine a colleague who cleverly spreads rumors to discredit a rival, not in a fit of rage, but as a carefully thought-out step towards a promotion. Or a salesperson who uses sophisticated psychological tricks, not just to sell something, but to systematically wear down a customer's defenses, all while acting charming and helpful. These folks are often masters of impression management, putting up a carefully crafted front to hide their real intentions. They can be charming, persuasive, and seem genuinely interested in others, but this is often an act designed to get you to lower your guard and give them information. They aren't necessarily clueless about other people's emotions. In fact, they can be quite good at reading people. But they use this understanding not for connection or empathy, but for exploitation. They know exactly which emotional buttons to push, how to subtly flatter, or when to apply pressure to get what they want. The key here is the detached, strategic approach. There's a long-term game being played, and every interaction is a potential move. For the Machiavellian mind, the ends almost always justify the means, especially if those means lead to personal power, status, or money. Another strong current in the dark waters of manipulation is narcissism. While we throw the term around pretty casually, clinical and subclinical narcissism involve a deep-seated pattern of grandiosity, a constant need for admiration, and a serious lack of empathy for others. For a narcissist, the world revolves around them, and other people are mainly there to reflect their supposed greatness or to serve their needs. This desperate hunger for validation and admiration is a key reason for their manipulative behaviors. Their self-esteem, despite looking like rock-solid confidence on the outside, is often incredibly fragile, like a beautiful but hollow statue. They need constant external fuel, praise, attention, even envy, to keep it from collapsing. When this narcissistic supply is threatened, or when they feel criticized or ignored, they might use all sorts of manipulative tactics to get back their sense of superiority and control. Gaslighting is a classic narcissistic tool. I never said that. You're being too sensitive. You're imagining things. By twisting your reality, they dodge blame, avoid accountability, and keep their position as the one who's always right, always in charge. Love bombing is another common trick, especially early in a relationship. They might shower you with affection, compliments, and big gestures, making you feel like you're the center of their universe. But this intense idealization is often just the setup for devaluation, used to hook you in and make you dependent on their approval. They might also use guilt tripping to make you feel responsible for their emotions or to bully you into doing what they want. Or they might constantly compare you to others, subtly chipping away at your confidence to keep you feeling insecure and easier to manage. The point of these manipulations isn't always to inflict pain just for the sake of it, though that can certainly happen. It's about protecting their inflated self-image, ensuring a steady flow of admiration, and controlling how others see them. Any challenge to their imagined perfection or authority is met with defensive and often manipulative responses. Understanding this bottomless need for validation, which often comes from a deeply damaged sense of self, is key to understanding why a narcissist twists the truth and plays with the emotions of people around them. Going even further into the darker side of manipulation, we find psychopathy. While it's related to narcissism and Machiavellianism in the dark triad, psychopathy often shows up as a more predatory and detached kind of manipulation. People with strong psychopathic traits are typically known for a profound lack of empathy and remorse, impulsiveness, superficial charm, and a tendency towards antisocial behavior. For a psychopath, others are often seen not just as tools, but as potential prey. Their manipulations can be more obviously exploitative, aimed at getting resources, seeking a thrill, or simply exerting dominance just because they can. While a narcissist might manipulate to protect their ego, and a Machiavellian might manipulate for strategic advantage, a psychopath may manipulate with a chilling indifference to the harm caused, or even get a kind of kick out of the act of deception and control itself. Their charm can be incredibly disarming. They can be fantastic storytellers, seeming to connect deeply and quickly, but this is often a carefully built act, a mask of sanity, designed to lure you in and make you drop your guard. They're skilled at spotting and exploiting vulnerabilities, using flattery, pity plays, or intimidation with equal ease, depending on what the situation needs. The impulsivity linked with psychopathy can mean their manipulative schemes are sometimes less about long-term strategy and more about getting what they want right now, though some can be very calculating. A key difference is the profound lack of conscience. While most people would feel guilt or shame after hurting someone, those high in psychopathic traits typically don't. This lets them do things that others would find disgusting without any internal conflict. They might lie constantly, get involved in scams, or be emotionally cruel with little to no visible distress. Their emotional world is often shallow. They might understand emotions on an intellectual level and use that knowledge to manipulate, but they don't feel them deeply themselves. It's important to remember that psychopathy is a spectrum, and not everyone with psychopathic traits is a criminal. However, the ability for detached, exploitative manipulation is a core feature. Their actions are often driven by a parasitic lifestyle, a need for power, or a desire for excitement, with little concern for the social or emotional mess they leave behind. Recognizing this cold, predatory mindset is crucial when trying to understand some of the most damaging forms of dark psychology. Not all manipulation comes from the cold calculations of dark triad traits. Sometimes its roots are buried in deep-seated insecurity, fear, and patterns of behavior learned over time. Imagine growing up in a place where your needs were constantly ignored, where love came with strings attached, or where you saw manipulation as the main way to get by. These early experiences can really shape how someone approaches relationships and tries to get what they want. For some, manipulation becomes a defense mechanism born out of fear. Fear of being abandoned, fear of failing, fear of being hurt or controlled themselves. If speaking up directly led to punishment or being dismissed in the past, a person might learn that indirect manipulative tactics are safer, or even the only way to get their needs met. By controlling others, they try to create a sense of predictability and safety in a world they see as threatening or unreliable. This doesn't excuse the behavior, but it adds a sad layer of complexity. Their attempts to prevent what they fear most ironically end up creating dysfunctional and often damaging relationships. Learned behavior is another big factor. If a child sees parents or other important people successfully using manipulation to get what they want, they might internalize these tactics as normal or even necessary. In some dysfunctional families, manipulation, guilt-tripping, or playing the victim might be the everyday way of communicating. Similarly, some toxic work environments or super-competitive social circles might accidentally reward manipulative behaviors, making them seem like the way to go. When these tactics are seen to work, leading to attention, resources, or avoiding blame, the behavior gets reinforced and is more likely to happen again. Plus, people might develop twisted ways of thinking to justify their manipulative actions. They might tell themselves, everyone does it, the ends justify the means, or that their victim had it coming. These excuses help to reduce any guilt or internal conflict, letting them continue the behavior without facing up to the ethical problems or the harm it causes. Understanding these pathways, the deep anxieties, the learned scripts, and the self-justifying stories, gives us a fuller picture of the varied and often twisted reasons people turn to dark psychology. So, we've looked at several unsettling drivers: a profound lack of empathy, an insatiable thirst for power, the cold calculation of Machiavellianism, the self-serving ego of narcissism, the predatory gaze of psychopathy, and the ingrained patterns of insecurity and learned behavior. It's really important to get that these drivers rarely show up on their own. More often, they twist together and feed off each other, creating a complex and deeply ingrained manipulative mindset. Think of a Venn diagram where these traits overlap. Someone might have a narcissistic need for admiration, combined with Machiavellian cunning to get it, and a psychopathic lack of remorse for any damage caused. Or, deep-seated insecurity might fuel a desperate need for control, leading them to use manipulative tactics they learned in a dysfunctional upbringing. The specific mix of these factors will shape the unique way someone uses dark psychology. This interplay creates a warped view of relationships and social interactions. Instead of seeing a world built on mutual respect, teamwork, and genuine connection, the manipulator often sees it as a battleground for competition, exploitation, and personal gain. Trust isn't a bond to be valued, but a weakness to be exploited. Empathy isn't a bridge to understanding, but something to be used against others. This worldview becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. When manipulative tactics get them what they want, more power, more attention, fewer consequences, it reinforces their belief that this is the only or best way to get through life. The twisted reason then isn't just one single thing, but a mix of these dark currents, creating a psychological setup where manipulating others becomes their go-to, almost instinctual way of operating. So why bother digging into these dark corners of human motivation? Why try to understand the twisted reasons behind such destructive behaviors? It's not to make us feel sorry for manipulators, and it's definitely not so we can learn these tactics ourselves. The main reason is empowerment through awareness. Understanding the why behind dark psychology helps us spot these patterns more clearly in our own lives, whether it's in personal relationships, at work, or even in how society works. When you can identify the underlying drivers, like a desperate need for control or a serious lack of empathy, you're less likely to be blindsided by the tactics themselves. You go from being a confused victim to an informed observer, able to see what's really going on beneath the surface. This knowledge can also help you set healthier boundaries. If you understand that someone's manipulative behavior comes from their own internal issues, their insecurities, their messed up worldview, you're less likely to take their actions personally or think it's a reflection of your own worth. It allows for a bit of emotional distance, which is vital for protecting yourself. You can say no more firmly, disengage more decisively, and seek support more confidently because you get that the problem often isn't with you, but with the manipulator's ingrained psychological patterns. Plus, understanding these motivations gives us a broader grasp of human nature in all its complexity. It reminds us that while many people operate from a place of goodwill, others navigate the world with very different and often harmful internal compasses. This awareness isn't about becoming cynical, but about becoming more discerning and resilient. It equips us to better protect our emotional and psychological well-being and to build relationships based on real respect and integrity rather than on fear, obligation, or deception. We've journeyed through some pretty unsettling psychological territory tonight, exploring the twisted reasons people use dark psychology tactics, from that chilling lack of empathy and the consuming hunger for power, to the calculated strategies of Machiavellianism, the fragile egos of narcissism, the predatory detachment of psychopathy, and the deep-seated wounds of insecurity and learned behavior. These aren't easy topics, but understanding them is a vital step towards navigating our complex social world with more wisdom and self-protection. The main takeaway isn't just about spotting a manipulator, it's about grasping the often disturbing why that fuels their actions. This deeper understanding doesn't excuse the behavior, but it does demystify it, taking away some of its power to confuse and harm us. What are your thoughts on all this? Have you ever encountered behaviors that, looking back, you now recognize as rooted in these motivations? Share your insights or experiences in the comments below. Respectfully, of course. Your story might help someone else recognize these patterns too. And if you found this exploration valuable and want to dive deeper into how these tactics work and how to protect yourself, I highly recommend checking out the book linked in the description. It's a powerful guide to decoding dark psychology, understanding manipulation, and strengthening your mental defenses. Make sure to like this video and subscribe for more content that aims to unravel the mysteries of the mind. Don't forget to hit that notification bell so you never miss our next journey into the fascinating and sometimes unsettling aspects of who we are. Stay aware, stay discerning, and thanks for watching.